All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining in. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Blaine Wilson. I am the Lifecycle Services Business Development Manager for Codale Electric Supply here in Salt Lake City. I've been with Codale since March, so a little over 9 months. My background is in mining. I've got about 10 plus years experience in the mining industry, mineral processing. I'm a metallurgist by background, but definitely enjoying the time I've spent with Codale, and let's go ahead and get started into this services overview. So to start out with, we're going to start by covering an IBE. So what is an IBE? An installed base evaluation. You'll find that Rockwell likes to use its acronyms. It loves those acronyms. And I'll try to explain any that we come across. But an installed base evaluation, essentially it's a cataloging of all Rockwell and third-party inventory at a customer site. It could be repairable, consumable, etc. It just depends on the level of IBE that you select. Our version of an IBE is performed by a Codale representative. We have a few skilled, very, very skilled IBE techs that come out and we'll perform the IBE collection. Rockwell also does these themselves. It's a little bit more in-depth, robust, but that is an option with these IBEs. The data from the inventory that's collected is uploaded into Rockwell's system, and then Rockwell in turn generates a report for delivery to the customer. And part of that report is, what the life cycle status is of each of those parts, what your critical spares are, etc. We'll kind of dive into that a little bit later. So the benefits of an IBE highlights the risks with your inventory, whether it's installed and running in your system, or if it's a spare part that you've got sitting on your shelf in your warehouse. It highlights the life cycle status, so you'll get a report that shows if the part is active, mature, end of life, or if it's discontinued. There's another section of the report that highlights the number of critical spares and the recommended number of spares that Rockwell has collected data on pretty much all the parts and pieces that they have, and they have this metric called the mean time between failure rate, MTBF, and that helps them calculate essentially how many spare parts of each piece you would need on the shelf. The IBE identifies points of vulnerability, whether it's due to supply chain or whether you've got a lot of discontinued or end of life cycle parts at your site. So what comes after an IBE? Typically, we do what's called an IBE readout, whether it's done by Codale or whether it's done by Rockwell. We sit down with customers and we go over these installed base evaluation reports. And ensure that they understand what they've got at site, what questions they might have, and where their vulnerabilities lie. We also can discuss possible migration paths if there's a lot of discontinued or end of life cycle items or assets. That can be done with a Rockwell field service engineer or local systems integrator. There's a criticality assessment that can be performed with Rockwell. That's a very valuable service that Rockwell offers because it helps identify where your biggest critical parts are in your system. It helps identify potential migration paths for upgrading and mitigating those end of life cycle assets. We could also take this bill of materials, is what it's called, this list of assets, and move it into a parts management agreement, which we will go through a little bit more in depth later. But that's essentially Rockwell-owned inventory that resides at a customer's site. Rockwell charges a monthly fee to house those parts at the site, and the parts are paid for as they're used or replenished. The other thing we can do is an integrated service agreement, also called an ISA. It's essentially a high-level Tech Connect, which if you're not familiar with Tech Connect, it's pretty basic phone-in support. There are a few different levels of it, but You could think of an integrated service agreement as like what you would experience with Comcast and bundling internet, phone, and your TV, your cable box. Bundle and save. An ISA brings a lot of services together all in one, whether it's repair, field service engineer, hours, etc., all into one thing. And that's one of the paths that we can take after completing one of these install base evaluations. And again, we'll kind of dive into that a little bit later. So here we want to kind of go over what a typical IBE kickoff would look like. We want to identify what the goals of this install base evaluation are. Product obsolescence, proper spare level inventory. Are we looking to consolidate vendors? Do we have a proper bill of materials there at site? Proper milestones. We perform the kickoff meeting. We get internal confirmation with Rockwell about this project and what's going to be happening with it. We confirm that the IBE scope is correct. We want to confirm the collection date, the estimated collection end date, and the data sync. We perform the on-site collection. Like we discussed earlier, that's either going to be a Codale representative or a Rockwell representative. We hold an internal strategy meeting and we review opportunities with the sales team, with the data collector, and we also do this IBE readout with customers, and we discuss how this IBE is going to impact each site. So a typical IBE, the most common one, we call it a level 2. It's Rockwell and third-party repairable equipment. It's 50, well, the most common is 50 panels, no storeroom inventory, at least in this example. We would put together the facility location, the collection details, what time the tech needs to arrive on site, safety information, what PPE is required, is there any training that needs to happen? We want to have a site contact at site. So here we go over the what the IBE levels are. So level 1 is our Rockwell automation repairable only. Level 2 is Rockwell and third-party repairable. Level 3, Rockwell repairable and consumable. That's once you start getting into the level 3 IBEs, it starts to become a little bit more time consuming because of the amount of consumable items that are typically at customer sites. As such, the level 2 is generally the most common one that we perform. Level 4, all repairable and consumable, and then level 5 is specialized stuff, so motors, mechanical, software, etc., and that's a case-by-case basis. The price varies by the number of panels that we have to that are as part of the collection. We there's different brackets, and each one is kind of like I said, is on a case-by-case basis, and we go from there. We like to make sure that we're getting the customers the best bang for their buck. So typical repairable parts: drives, electronic operator interface, I/O modules and racks, motion control, controllers, power supplies, etc. Other consumable parts, you'd see circuit breakers, fuses, contactors, other motion controllers, relays, etc., etc. Okay, so one of the benefits of the IBE, when you get the report, you get this hierarchy. It shows the area, the location, which machine, the asset number, and even down to the part number. And that's the kind of report that we want because, customers and even the Rockwell engineers, we need to know where those parts and pieces are so that we can help identify where the weaknesses lie as far as the life cycle status of these parts. Part of the install base evaluation is an environmental check. That's why it's important for us to come out to site and perform this in person. Our IBE techs are checking for cleanliness of the cabinets that they're opening. They're looking for dust, water, other contaminants, because that ends up being part of the report. There's typically they're checking for the cleanliness of the air filters. Is the cabinet really hot? Is there proper ventilation? They can check the Ethernet nodes. In the kind of the more advanced IBEs, we can do the voltage and arc flash check and the wiring checks as well. Okay. In the report, we would get in the inspections and findings, we would get the information from Rockwell that says that the cabinet was in good condition, fair condition, or that it needed to be there was attention needed. This is a sample of an IBE report that shows what the maturity level is. You can see there that they have 564 active products, 27 active mature products, and then 84 discontinued products. And the benefits of this report is it reveals where the risks are. And a lot of people just don't know exactly what's out there in their plant. And this helps us find that and help prepare a path forward to fixing that. So the IBE helps us to identify or get detail of what the facility health is like, the critical processes of machines, what the insufficient spares are, and what hardware solutions we could implement as far as a parts management agreement is concerned. We could look at doing legacy migrations. A lot of our IBEs that we've performed lately, we're coming across a lot of really old legacy hardware. And while some of it may still be repairable and supported, at some point it's not going to be available for that anymore. And so we have to be able to figure out how to mitigate that and how to help the customer move forward. Also, it helps us identify, are there preventive maintenance agreement options? Are there other services that we as Codale or that we can offer through Rockwell? There are a lot of options available for us. So sometimes we have scope deviation. If the data collector is asked to exceed the original scope, we can put together call it a change order, and we can adjust as needed. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with, so let's start with parts management agreements. Give a high-level overview. Parts management agreements, like we discussed a little bit earlier, it's Rockwell-owned inventory that resides at a customer site. We get fixed monthly or quarterly pricing, and what that means is that when you start the contract of this parts management agreement, the price remains the same throughout the course of the contract. The only time the price changes is if there's what we call an addition or deletion. So if there's a change made to the bill of materials. And I think we'll get through that a little bit later. It is a flexible agreement in that you can make changes to the bill of materials. So if you want to add parts to it or take parts off of it, we can do that. There's an in-service warranty on stock that's part of the PMA. What that means is that the warranty doesn't start ticking until the part is used. And, we'll kind of go through all of this as we go on. And all the used inventory is replenished with Allen Bradley. You can replenish with Allen Bradley remanufactured or repaired parts or new, depending on what you want. Anything that has a Rockwell part number, we can put it onto a PMA. It could even be consumable items or third-party items. There is a caveat with the third-party items. In the event that you opt to cancel the agreement at any time, Rockwell will not take back the third-party materials. That has to be purchased by the customer. And at any point, the customer can purchase as much of the inventory that's on the PMA as they want, if they can execute that. So some of the obstacles that we find in the industry these days is, lack of shelf space. There's a lot of duplicate spares. There's even insufficient stock of critical spares. Obsolescence is a huge thing that we're running into these days, and a lot of it's because we're trying to make things go farther because of the supply chain issues that everybody's experiencing nowadays. Customers have multiple vendors. We're trying to struggle to get new machine spares on site. Is the integrity of our inventory still good? How's the life cycle management? And is the inventory that we have in our supply room just sunk cost? Are we going to end up using it eventually? So the opportunities for a PMA is that we can minimize those inventory costs. It helps reduce downtime in the event that a part fails. You have those critical spares right there, ready to go, and you're not waiting for them to be shipped out. Helps reduce maintenance costs, simplifies your budgeting. We can consolidate, with the ability to put third-party materials onto a PMA, we can help consolidate the whole vendor situation. Traditional parts ownership model, it's sunk cost of inventory. It's tied up. You buy those parts, they sit there. And you don't know if you're going to use them. The warranty starts as soon as you purchase them. And with the PMA, the warranty clock starts once that item is removed from the PMA stock. So if you have a 5-year agreement and on year 4.5, you take a part off that shelf, it still has a one-year warranty associated with it. And that's one of the biggest benefits of this. Inactive PMA stock can be returned, and you can add the next generation products with the agreement to keep up with that life cycle that we identify as part of the install base evaluation. Okay, so the PMA, we get immediate availability of our critical spare parts, increased uptime of automation systems, so decreased downtime, reduced mean time to repair, less inventory carrying costs, less management of inventory because Rockwell is managing that bill of materials. And it's a flat operating expense, which allows more optimization in most customers' capital expense budget. Rockwell has found that a lot of people are not prepared for unexpected and unplanned downtime events, and a lot of times we have to order parts, and there's a wait right now, and it's unfortunate the way that the supply chain is right now, but it's just kind of the way of the world. With a parts management agreement, you have availability of spare parts right there in hand, ready to go, and it will help decrease that unplanned and unexpected downtime. And they found that 50% of service work that can't be successfully completed the first time is due to lack of part availability. And I'm sure that anybody that's ever been involved in maintenance has experienced that. Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of skipping through. I know we're kind of, we have a lot of material to cover and fairly limited time. So PMAs, the idea behind a PMA is to improve the bottom line. It's all about savings, simplifying budgeting, and minimizing the total cost of your inventory ownership. You only house the spares that you need as active spares. You help avoid the inventory obsolescence. You get that 1-year in-service warranty, like we discussed earlier. We've already talked about the perks of downtime avoidance. And there is support for legacy and non-Allen Bradley products as part of the PMA. Just based on my background in mining, I can't tell you how many times we came across, we had unexpected downtime, and I would have wished that we'd had one of these in place because we were waiting for spare parts or trying to find something in the warehouse that we didn't know where it was at. Whereas with a PMA, there's typically a segregated section, a shelf that has all these spare parts on it. We would have been able to go and find it and get the downtime taken care of right away. So a traditional capital investment, you spend $10,000 to purchase one critical spare part, and at year 4, you're still out $10,000. Even if that part fails, it's not going to be under warranty. Versus on a PMA, you pay that low monthly fee, and then on year 4, if there's a part failure, you can replenish with a fully remanufactured part for additional savings, and you're not out the sunk cost of a $10,000 part over 4 years. Okay, so how do you get started with the PMA? The best way is, again, to start with an install base evaluation so we can better understand what your inventory needs are. you contact us, Codale, as since we're your local distributor here in Utah, Nevada, and parts of Wyoming. You would provide us with a list of parts. If we don't have an installed base evaluation done, we can still create a bill of materials based on what you want, and the quantity of each of those, and how long you want the agreement to be. And then we would review the proposal with you and go over any other add-ons that we want to put on as part of that. Okay. Going. One of the benefits of PMA is just being able to leverage those repair services. If the part is repairable, we can get the core sent back in and to save costs instead of buying it new, and you can get the replenishment quicker, especially with the supply chain issues that we're having these days. The best way for us to manage a PMA is as soon as a part is used off the shelf, it's best to notify us so that we can get you the replenishment back on your shelf. There is a quarterly audit that is done by Rockwell, and the purpose of that audit that is performed is not for replenishment purposes. It's to make sure that you guys have what you're supposed to have on your shelf, and that you're not paying for something that you don't have. And it's in your best interest to make sure that we get those parts replaced as soon as possible once they've been used. All right. Let's go ahead and dive into integrated service agreement. So before we get too far into this, I kind of want to give a little bit of an overview of what TechConnect is. For those of you that are not familiar with TechConnect, it is, like I said earlier, it's the very basic phone-in support system. There are 3 levels of it. There's the self-assist is what it's called, and that's where it's fairly self-explanatory, where rather than being able to call in on a line, you use your own knowledge, or you can access Rockwell's knowledge base. There's forums available, like there's even a chat feature that you can use, but you're kind of on your own with that one. It covers software support, software updates. The next level up is the Monday through Friday 8 to 5, and you get kind of a very basic level of engineer when you call in for help. And then the top level is 24/7. So you can call in at any time. You still get kind of that basic level of engineer, and they can help guide you through the issues. So with that in mind, the integrated service agreement takes that concept and, moves it quite a bit further down the line and makes it and really maximizes it. So the idea behind an ISA is to maximize your asset reliability and uptime, reduce your total cost of ownership, optimize your installed base investment, and supplement your technical workforce. I'm sure that many of you on this webinar have experienced or are going to be experiencing. There's a significant portion of the workforce in general that's retiring right now, and there's a huge shortage of technical work hands available. Being a metallurgist, I fully understand that there's a huge shortage of metallurgists and technical folks in the mining industry. We're seeing it everywhere. And by 2025, it's expected that up to 2 million jobs are going to go unfulfilled. So how do we mitigate that? We want to get you guys access. We want everybody to be able to have access to skilled engineers and product specialists, and be able to leverage the support tools at your disposal, and even learning resources and training tools. And that's all part of the ISA. So when we talk about optimizing the installed base investment, there is a repair portion of the ISA that we will discuss a little bit further, but up to 30% of the products returned to Rockwell don't have an issue with them. Often it's just that the firmware is out of date, which can be updated remotely. And, you know, we can use domain and product experts to apply the technology correctly and help get those updated. We can utilize the lifecycle data from the install base evaluation to help mitigate where we have identified weaknesses lie. As part of that install base evaluation, as we discussed earlier, we identify aging equipment and implement strategies to extend the life of those assets. And we want to help you guys modernize your installed base and keep that information up to date and visible. Okay, so with an ISA, typically when a customer calls in for tech support on a Tech Connect, they've got one number to call. If they need a repair done, they would get in contact with somebody at Codale or even Rockwell directly, but typically they would go through a distributor to get the repair done. If they need field service engineer callouts, they're going to call their distributor, who's going to then call Rockwell and get that all figured out. With an ISA, that's all underneath the same umbrella. So there's one number to call on one agreement, and it provides access to experts quickly. ISA customers typically get priority service, and there's the ability to scale these agreements globally. So it's not just tied to one customer site. If there's a lot of satellite sites, we can get coverage for those. And when we talk about analytics driven insights and support, there's a part of integrated service agreements that includes a dashboard, if you will, they call it My Rockwell or My Services, and it goes over what all's been used, how many service tickets have been called in for, how many have been resolved, what they've been called in for, how you've used repair dollars, field service engineer callouts, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of tools available to help maximize these ISAs. So if you were to go through all of those transactions, so calling in for support, getting repairs, field labor callouts, exchange, migration, et cetera, the install base evaluation, it adds up. It adds up to a lot of dollars, a lot of transactions, a lot of purchase orders. It's a lot of legwork to be done. An ISA puts all of that into one transaction, one purchase order, one monthly cost. And most times we can actually save money for customers on an integrated service agreement, depending on how often they're calling in for support, field service engineer callouts, emergency field service engineer callouts, and how often they're sending things in for repair. It's all part of the process of analyzing that usage and determining whether or not an ISA is the right fit. So just like Tech Connect, there are 3 different levels of ISAs. You'll notice this bottom one is called the Essential. I want to say bottom. The lowest tier is called the Essential tier. You still get 24/7 system support. So when you call in, you get a much higher level of engineer, and they can help you via chat, phone, or live view support. There is an annual repair portion to this agreement, and Rockwell gives bonus, if you will. They give a benefit to the repair dollars. So you're allotted a certain amount, and you can actually put as much on there as you want, and Rockwell will give a bonus on top of that. You get the contract usage analytics, as we talked about, the My Rockwell or My Services dashboard. It gives you a lot of insight for that. And as part of the ISA, we like to do, and Rockwell likes to do, what we call quarterly business reviews, where we look at the analytics of how that contract is being used, and we go over what your entitlements are, how much you've used, what's been used, and how much you still have left to ensure that you're getting the most out of that contract. On the Essential tier, the field service engineer portion is an add-on. but we can still put as many hours as needed in there, and you'd have access to that repair hour bucket. As part of an essential tier ISA, we can bundle in an IBE that's driven by Codale, so that everybody can have access to that that IBE report and the life cycle data. And it really gives us a good starting point to understand what we need to do down the road to make sure that this contract gets the proper coverage. Contract management is another add-on. Scheduled maintenance is an add-on. Actually, that's not available, and neither is, I apologize. Contract management and scheduled maintenance are not available on the essential tier. Learning Plus and a PMA are add-ons that we can do as part of the essential tier, and that's again all part of the whole bundle and save portion. The enhanced tier. Still get the 24/7 system support, the annual repair agreement. You get the dashboard. This one has field service hours bundled into it, and there is a Rockwell performed installed base evaluation as part of this. And that is an annual installed base evaluation. And I'm going to kind of pause right there. A lot of people ask me, why do I need an installed base evaluation performed every year as part of this ISA agreement? The reason behind that is because as part of these ISA contracts with the repair portion, Rockwell is bound by contract to ensure that they have the parts available to repair anything that comes into them. And so they need to understand what customers have as far as their installed base is concerned, what's repairable, what's not, and what they can take in for repair, what's available for repair. So that's the importance of that. And that also keeps that life cycle portion up to date on an annual basis, so we get a really good snapshot of how the assets are aging. And then again, Learning Plus and a PMA are both add-ons that we can put into that enhanced tier. And for those of you that, before I get too far, Learning Plus is Rockwell's e-learning platform. I know probably a lot of you are familiar with the courses that Rockwell will facilitate at Codale sites, be there in Salt Lake, Elko, Reno, or Las Vegas. There's a myriad of courses that are offered throughout the course of the year. A Learning Plus subscription gets you access to all of those at one time. It's there's self-paced courses, and there's also virtual instructor-led courses. And the longer instructor-led courses are typically broke up into chunks, so that you're not sitting there, you're not taking an entire day out of your work schedule to get these completed. It's fed to you over time. But again, these are add-ons that we can put into ISAs. The Premier tier, you still get everything that's included on the Essential and Enhanced. The IBEs included, the Field Service Engineers included. On the Premier tier, there is emergency call out included at no charge when a customer is engaged with tech support. On the Premier tier, you also get the My Equipment like you would. The My Equipment is part of the IBE. It's a very, in my opinion, highly valuable add-on that's to an IBE. It's included with any IBE, actually, and you can opt to keep that subscription active after it's completed. And what it does is it gives you ongoing access to all of that installed base information, and you can update it as needed. You can track it. And with the Premier tier, you get access to an optimization consultation, which we will kind of go over. We discussed that a little bit earlier, but it really helps figure out what the best path forward is as far as taking care of legacy items and making sure that everything's kept up to date. Contract management and scheduled maintenance are part of the Premier tier. And then again, the Learning Plus and PMA can be bundled in with these. And there is a lot of value to having that PMA bundled in with this ISA, especially if the repair agreement portion is leveraged properly, because most of the times that those repairs would be covered as part of the the bucket of repair dollars that are part of the ISA. Okay, so there's a myriad of different entitlements. You can see here, this is kind of broken out of what each entitlement is for. So the 24/7 remote system support's there to supplement the technical workforce as we discuss the shortages in the industry these days, to optimize the install base, reduce the total cost of ownership, and maximize the asset reliability and uptime. Calling in and getting that high level of engineer is extremely beneficial. The annual repair agreement, we don't need to go through all these line by line, but you can see that each of these entitlements as part of an ISA is tied to a specific customer outcome and how it benefits you in the long run. Okay, excuse me. Okay, so we can kind of take a breakdown of what 5-year support costs without an integrated service agreement would look like. And this is just an example. Like we've kind of discussed earlier, every situation is unique and we have to treat it as a case-by-case basis. But this customer, this example, they're paying for a remote support agreement. So like a Tech Connect, which is typically a flat fee every year. They've got a lot of repair dollars that they've spent. It varies year by year, and they also do a lot of field labor call outs. This is called reactive, and it's typically the high cost portion. So same year, same customer, 5-year support costs with an integrated service agreement, because the remote support, the repairs, and the field labor are all included as part of that ISA. It represents a pretty significant savings. And again, this is just an example. And again, every case is going to be different. So the hidden value for the customer, cost savings, everything's on one agreement. There's one phone number to call. So whether it's a repair, field service engineer need, or phone support, it's all on the same number with the same authorization number, and everything can get taken care of with just that one phone call. There's priority exchange as opposed to repair. Emergency callouts are included with the Premier level. You get the metrics and on-demand dashboards, priority dispatch and repair status, and there's the discounts on the Learning Plus subscriptions. So the benefit of having Rockwell is that pretty much any time of day that you call in on a 24/7 agreement, you're going to be able to reach somebody, because there's always somebody that's going to be available, and you'll be able to get the help that you need relatively quickly. So they've got more than 500 remote support engineers, more than 600 field service engineers, 16 global support centers, 80 countries are under support. Average engineers have 13 plus years of experience, and they've got 21 different languages at their disposal. So this right here is when we talk about data-driven analytics, this is what the dashboard would look like for a My Service or an ISA customer. They get the My Services dashboard as part of that. And this is what the dashboard would look like. So here in this section, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but this upper left section goes over service tickets by support category by month. And there's a breakdown of each of those service tickets where we can see who called in for those support tickets, what the products were, We can even see the repairs that were done by month, whether that was a warranty exchange or if it was a billable transaction. You can look at the repair dollars that have been consumed. You can see repair orders by service tier, standard, economy, or priority. And there's just a wealth of information, and it really helps track how the contract is being used, what you're still entitled to, and what the pace is for the length of the contract. So when you start in an integrated service agreement, there's typically a welcome email. We call it a welcome kit. That's usually sent within a day when the contract starts. And then we would host a kickoff call with key stakeholders at the customer site. We would identify what the key goals are, the KPIs, and we would go over the entitlements. Depending on the ISA tier that has been selected and whether, at least on the essential tier, if an IBE was included as part of it. But on the enhanced and premier tier, we would schedule an install base evaluation within a month and make sure that that gets done. And then within the first quarter, we would do our first executive business review where we go over the IBE results, kick off the My Equipment dashboard, and go over any scheduled maintenance. And we repeat those business reviews, not necessarily with IBE results, but we repeat those business reviews on a quarterly basis to help ensure that those key stakeholders at the customer site understand what their entitlements are, how they're being used, and that they understand the value of the contract that they're paying for. Okay, so how do you get started? We can organize a discovery meeting and we can discuss the business challenges and how we can help support those. We would conduct an internal evaluation to analyze those business needs, and then we can tailor a support agreement to fit the support requirements. And I think that's the beauty of these ISAs versus a Tech Connect is that it's very, very customizable, and we can pretty much tailor these to help fit almost any customer need. If there's a lot of repair that's needed, we can bundle that in. If you use more field service, if you tend to use a lot of field service engineer call outs, that's another thing that we can really dial in on.